This was not the first time of me telling this story. This has been years. It started me telling this story when my sister passed away. So this is like years of me getting to this point, to this layer. I always stand true by what I said. I always stand true by what happened. And I don't know if there was a right or wrong way, the way I handled it. I don't think that there was. And with what I speak with my therapist with, there was no right or wrong way to tell the story. I just had to tell the story.
Listen, this whole situation with Ashlee and the Braxton crew is spinning out fast, and the drama's getting wild about a minute. This mess got layers, and every time someone talks, it just pulls us deeper into a tunnel that nobody asked for. From the start, Ashlee was open about what she went through, and she wasn't shaky about it either. She spoke up for years, stood on the truth, and every detail matched from interview to interview like she had the whole timeline stamped in the mind. Anyone who actually listened knew exactly what she meant and exactly what she was pointing at.
And it may not be your family, and that is totally okay. I am an example of that. You may not get support from your family, and that is totally fine. You still have the right to use your voice. You still have the right to talk. You still have the right to say how you feel. The world will try to silence you. People will try to silence you, but the world needs your voice and not your silence.
But now out of nowhere, Ashlee switching up a whole tone like someone hit a reset button on the story. Suddenly, she talking like the situation wasn't that serious, like the hurt she described for years somehow shrank overnight. And that right there got everybody raising eyebrows. People don't just soften their own truth after standing on it for so long unless there's pressure somewhere. And let's be real, this ain't the type of shift that just happens because someone woke up in a different mood. When somebody been consistent for years, then starts stepping back from their own words, it screams that something or someone stepped in hard. It sounds like somebody slid in her ear, pushed the storyline, or made her feel like she had to keep the peace to protect a certain image or a certain person. Victims don't just rewrite their whole experience unless something around them changed. So the real question is, what changed? And who decided they needed her to tone everything down? Because this switch up didn't come from nowhere, and you can feel that something behind the scenes is twisting the narrative. This whole thing ain't just suspicious anymore. It's giving full-on cover-up vibes, like somebody scrambling behind the scenes to keep certain secrets locked away. Because seriously, who gains anything from Ashlee flipping her whole story like this? It's definitely not Ashlee, and it's definitely not the people who've been following her journey hoping for honesty and clarity.
Stepbrothers, did they come with her? Were they part of the package, or did they come along later?
They came along later.
Okay.
So my sister is 3 years younger than I am. My oldest younger brother is 4 years, and then after that it's 8 years.
Okay.
So they came after, and it's unfortunate that even now we don't have a relationship because we were just pit against each other.
Yeah.
So the household was like all for one and one for all. You better guard up.
Wow.
And it's not really healthy.
No, definitely not. No. You know, I was wondering, like, what would the effects of those circumstances be on the younger brothers? Because it would be very difficult for them to, I guess, develop respect towards you and your sister.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't see eye to eye because the way they see life is very different than the way I've seen it. And so for them, it's hard, which is understandable.
Yeah.
When I'm speaking these things about their mother, these are quite harsh accusations
of course.
that I'm saying.
Yeah.
And if you were not there to grasp what was happening, then perhaps you think and be like, I think this is a little far-fetched.
Yes.
And that was something that was really hard for me because I come from this family.
So that leaves one group, the folks with a name to protect and a whole image they don't want cracked open. And here's where things start feeling like a plot twist nobody saw coming. Ashlee got features that line up with Towanda so tight, it makes people stop scrolling and take a second look. The face shape, the structure, even the expressions. It's wild how strong the resemblance hits when you put their pictures side by side. I ain't got DNA proof in my hand, but I do got eyes, and what these eyes see is raising real questions that are hard to ignore. If something looks like a duck, sounds like a duck, and stands there like a duck, at some point you gotta ask if someone been hiding the real story all this time. And that's not even the end of it. Ashlee been out here for years, putting the truth on the internet, dropping interviews, posting videos, and telling her story straight up with no shaking in her voice. She wasn't hiding. She wasn't whispering. She was out there loud and clear, but somehow her story barely made a ripple until recently, and that's strange, real strange, especially when she's tied to the Braxton family, one of the most known R&B families in the whole game. Something about that silence feels intentional, like somebody wanted her story pushed into the corner where no one would look. So how is it that Ashlee been posting videos for years, but her views look like she's talking to a wall? How is her voice basically invisible, even though she's tied to people with major celebrity pull? That kind of silence don't happen by accident. That's the type of quiet that feels planned. It feels like somebody pushed our content so far down the algorithm that you'd have to trip over it just to find it. That's giving straight up content suppression, like somebody wanted her truth buried deep where nobody would ever hear it. And now let's get into Ashlee's father, because the situation around him is sounding way too intense. According to her, he's been trying to shut her down hard, like he don't want a single word leaving her mouth. She said there's been pressure, attempts to silence her, and moments where she felt unsafe just for speaking on what happened. That's serious, because why would any father fight that hard to keep his own daughter quiet unless she's talking about something he don't want in the open? When someone works overtime to silence another person, that usually don't mean the story is fake. It means the story hits too close to home. Folks don't waste energy trying to shut down lies. They shut down truth because truth crack open doors they won't lock forever. So hearing that he allegedly wants her to stop talking just makes her claim sound even more real and even more dangerous to whoever she's exposing. And then out of nowhere, right in the middle of all this tension, Ashlee's sister passed away, and that shook everybody. The timing, the situation around it, and the silence that followed had people side-eyeing everything. It had the internet buzzing because it came out of nowhere and left a big question mark floating about the whole family. People instantly started wondering what's going on behind the scenes, what secrets are being protected, and who stands to gain from keeping all this in the dark. Now, when you look at all of this, the suppression, the pressure, the fear, the timing, the bigger family picture starts coming into focus. It makes the whole theory feel like it's not just theory anymore, like there's something under the surface that nobody wants touched. When you raise a kid every day, feed them, take care of them, guide them, that kid is going to naturally lock onto you as their parent, especially when they're young and nobody is explaining the full situation around them. So it sparks a real question here. If Towanda was the one doing the day-to-day raising, could Ashlee have grown up believing a story that wasn't the full truth because that's the only version she was ever given? It would explain why she always felt unsure about who she really felt like her real mother is. And now we got to look at this birth certificate situation, because this part right here is where things get legally messy fast. Ashlee said her mother's name was removed from her birth certificate, and that is not the type of thing that happens with a quick phone call or a form at the DMV. Birth certificates don't just get switched up on a random Tuesday. To change that kind of document, you need court involvement, legal steps, official paperwork, the whole 9 yards. That's a serious process with serious intention behind it. So let's break that down for real. Either Ashlee grew up being told something that wasn't accurate, or somebody fed her one version of the story to keep the real situation quiet. Or something way more questionable happened behind closed doors to legally rewrite her history. None of those options look simple, and all of them point in the same direction, that something about her family background was being kept under wraps for a long time. And if a legal alteration really went down, that means someone took the time, money, and effort to get the courts involved just to adjust the information tied to Ashlee's identity. That kind of move ain't small. That's a major step someone takes when they want certain truths buried deep where nobody thinks to look. This lines up way too clean with the theory that Towanda might be her real mother, and somebody didn't want that detail out in the open.
Here's where the story flips again. Out of nowhere, Ashlee suddenly mentions having brothers, and this is the very first time she's ever said that in all the years she's been sharing her life online. That dropped like a bomb, because how do you talk for years about your past, your pain, your family, and never once bring up brothers until now? So where did these brothers come from? Who are they? And why were they never spoken about before? It feels like pieces of her family tree been kept in the shadows from the start. When new relatives pop up out of thin air, it hints that there are deeper layers the public has never heard about. More hidden relationships, more secrets tucked away, more parts of the story that were never allowed to surface. And every time Ashlee shares something new, instead of clearing things up, It just opens another door and brings in more questions. It's like the truth is wrapped in twist after twist, and each reveal makes everything look more suspicious. Now let's zoom out for a second, because this situation ain't happening in a vacuum. The Braxton family has had multiple people come forward with their own stories over the years. Tamar spoke publicly about what she went through. Ashlee shared her experiences, and Trina's ex, Gabe, had his own messy scandals that the public still talks about. That's not random. That's a pattern, and patterns don't build themselves for no reason. So with all these claims stacking up from different angles, you gotta wonder what kind of environment these women grew up in. What type of family dynamic allowed all this to stay quiet while people were hurting? It's looking like the priority in that house was keeping the family brand shiny and untouchable while the people inside were left carrying their pain alone. That kind of silence don't happen by accident. It happens when a family decides the image is more important than the truth. Now this brings us right back to Ashlee in that sudden switch up that nobody saw coming. After years of standing firm on her story, she's now brushing off what she went through like it wasn't that serious, and that is not normal for somebody who's been so steady and outspoken for so long. This doesn't look like healing, it looks like somebody got in her space, leaned on her hard, and pushed her into toning everything down. Something about this shift screams pressure, not peace. And when you stack that on top of the family's past and everything they stand to lose if the full truth ever hits the light, the whole thing starts making a lot more sense. That family got a long history of trying to protect their image, so her sudden shift doesn't feel random, it feels strategic. Even more reason to believe somebody wants her story rewritten. Now, let's talk about childhood memory for a second because this part matters. Memories from when you're young can be shaped, twisted, or straight up replaced if adults keep repeating the same story over and over. If a child hears a false version of events long enough, that becomes their reality because they don't have the power or understanding to question what the adults around them say. That's just how the brain works when you're young and trying to make sense of the world. So if Ashlee grew up being told things that weren't true, like who her mother was, what happened with her birth certificate, or how her family structure really looked, then of course her understanding would be cloudy. She wasn't confused because she didn't care. She was confused because the foundation she was given was never real in the first place. She was building her whole identity on information that was twisted before she even had the chance to form her own memories. Now, let's circle back to those document changes because that part is huge and people need to get how serious it is. You cannot just walk into an office and tell someone to switch the names on a birth certificate. That is not how the law works. That kind of change takes court involvement, legal filings, proof, and a full paper trail. It's a whole process with steps that can't be skipped, and every move leaves records behind. So when Ashlee says there are document changes, that tells you something big was happening behind closed doors, something official, something planned, and something that required real intention, because nobody goes through a legal maze like that unless they're trying to adjust a story that they do not want questioned. When Ashlee talks about those documents being altered, that's not something that just happens by accident. For anything on that level to be changed, somebody had to go through a full legal process. So if the paperwork doesn't line up, it means somebody moved through the system on purpose, not by mistake. And let me make this part loud and clear, because people like to twist things when they don't want to face the truth. Even if some details were mixed up or fed to her wrong when she was young, her pain is still real. Her experience is still real. What she lived through doesn't disappear just because someone played games with the information she was given. Trauma doesn't vanish because paperwork got shuffled around. The secrecy in this family, the confusion, the cover-ups, the way everything feels like a maze, that only makes her story even more believable. When a family creates that much fog, it usually means they're hiding something they don't want anybody reaching for. And the attempts to silence Ashlee just make everything look even darker, not clearer. Now, this is where the theory goes into way heavier territory. There's talk that Michael, Ashlee's father, has been trying to shut her down using legal tactics, not conversations. Things like cease and desist letters, threats, and efforts to force her into silence. And if that's real, then his motive becomes crystal clear: protecting what he doesn't want the world to know about his past. That kind of pressure doesn't come from innocence. It comes from someone scared of their own truth getting out. And here's the wild part that connects everything. If the theory is right, if Michael and Towanda are actually Ashlee's parents, then he has even more reason to keep her quiet, because that would unleash a whole new scandal that would shape the entire Braxton image from top to bottom. It wouldn't just be messy, it would be explosive.
And let's go ahead and call out the hypocrisy while we're here. This family built half their fame on reality TV, selling transparency, realness, and no filters to the whole world. They made a career off letting people into their business. But suddenly, when Ashlee speaks, everyone wants silence. Suddenly, the truth is off limits. That switch-up is wild, and everybody can see it. For years, this family made serious money putting their lives on full display. The breakups, the arguments, the drama, all of it blasted on TV like it was nothing. But behind the cameras, it's a whole different world full of secrets, contradictions, and storylines that are controlled tighter than a vote. They show the public the version that protects their brand, but the real mess stays locked away where nobody can reach it. Ashlee is dragging out the parts they tried to bury for years, and that's exactly why her voice is shaking things up. And now let's talk about these brothers she mentioned, because it's already confirmed they're half-brothers. That means there are family connections the public never knew about, relationships that were kept far from the spotlight, and details that were hidden on purpose. When half-siblings pop up like that, it tells you somebody been keeping certain pieces off the table for a long time. This wasn't an accident, this was planned silence. So let's pull all of this together and look at the picture without the filters. Is Towanda actually Ashlee's real mother? When you stack the clues, the whole situation starts looking real suspicious. The resemblance between the two of them is strong, not just a kinda looks alike thing, but the type of match that makes people stop and stare. Then there's the birth certificate confusion, and that alone hints at legal moves being made behind closed doors. That kind of change doesn't happen unless someone pushes paperwork through a system they know how to use. That's not a slip-up, that's strategy. And we can't ignore the secrecy around certain documents, the missing info, the things Ashlee was told growing up, the puzzle pieces that never matched. When legal records start looking foggy, it usually means someone wanted the truth tucked away. The timeline issues don't line up either. And when timelines don't match up, that usually means somebody is bending the story to fit whatever version they want the world to believe. Then add in the way the family behaves, the pressure, the silence, the pushback on Ashlee, the attempts to guide her narrative like she doesn't have her own voice. All of that together paints a picture that's hard to ignore. Every clue points in the same direction. Every piece slides into place, and the whole thing starts looking like a secret they've been trying to keep wrapped up for years. And now here's where everything gets even wilder. Because once you start putting these pieces together, the whole story starts cracking open in ways the family definitely didn't expect. Ashlee changing her tune, documents not lining up, half-brothers showing up out of nowhere, that's already messy. But the reactions from certain family members make it even worse because instead of clearing things up, they're dodging questions like they know the truth would blow everything wide open. The more Ashlee talks, the more certain people start acting uncomfortable, like they're scared that one wrong sentence could expose a secret they spent years trying to bury. You can feel the tension, and you can tell folks behind the scenes are scrambling to control the situation before it gets completely out of their hands. That kind of behavior isn't random. It's the kind of panic you see when somebody knows a truth they don't want anyone else to hear. And have you noticed how nobody from the family is given straight answers? Everything is vague, everything is no comment, everything is brushed off or redirected like they're allergic to saying anything concrete. That's not what people do when a rumor is false. That's what people do when the rumor is a little too close to the real story. This whole situation feels like a puzzle where every time Ashlee talks, another piece falls into place. And even the timing of certain statements from the family feels off, like they're waiting to see what Ashlee says next before they decide what they're going to say. That's not transparency. That's strategy. And when you mix strategy with silence, that only tells the world one thing. There's something big they don't want to get out. And let's not ignore the way Ashlee's energy has shifted. You can hear the conflict, you can feel the pressure, and you can tell she's trying to speak while carrying a weight she didn't ask for. Someone with nothing to hide doesn't need to silence anyone, but someone sitting on a secret this explosive, they'll do whatever it takes to keep things quiet. Every sign keeps pointing to one conclusion. Something huge is being protected, and Ashlee's voice might be the first crack in the wall they tried to keep sealed forever. Even without DNA laid out on the table, the clues stacking up around this situation are getting way too strong to ignore. The theory isn't just sounding possible anymore, it's starting to look like the most reasonable explanation when you line everything up side by side. Every detail, every reaction, every strange shift in behavior keep pointing in the same direction like a giant flashing sign. So now I want to hear straight from you. Do you believe the Towanda theory is real? Do you feel like Ashlee is getting pushed into silence by her own family? Does this whole thing look like a major cover-up happening right